All right, welcome to lesson 5 of module 7. Today we are going to be simplifying and solving equations that involve squares, cubes, square roots, and cube roots. So we're going to use our knowledge of these different parts of equations to actually solve long linear or nonlinear equations today. You're successful when you can use your algebraic knowledge and properties of equality to solve and simplify multi-step equations. So we're going to get right into that today with lesson 5. All right, starting off with our first example, one thing I want to remind you of at the top is our order of operations. We always want to look out for any parentheses and use or and do whatever's inside of those parentheses first. Then we want to look at our exponents. Next we have multiplication and division. Whichever one comes first, meaning we read from left to right, we solve from left to right, we do next. And the same with addition and subtraction. Okay? So we're going to get started in this equation right here. The first thing I want to do is identify what is my point. What am I trying to do here? Well, I'm trying to get x by itself. There's a lot of x's throughout, so I need to combine them, and then I need to isolate them from all the numbers. Okay? So the first thing I do is parentheses. So what I'm going to look at is these parentheses, whatever's in these parentheses right here, and I'm going to solve what's in there first. Well, are there any exponents in there? No. Any multiplication or division? Well, it's doing 18 times x, but I can't break that down any smaller. Any addition or subtraction? 18x plus 54, but I can't do that because those are not like terms. So I'm going to move on. All right. Is there any multiplication going on? Yeah. X is being multiplied by itself 3 times. 9 is being multiplied by x, but I can't simplify either of those. Okay? And then I have this 1/2 being multiplied to whatever's in the parentheses beside it, and I can simplify that. So that's going to be my first step here. So I'm going to distribute 1/2 to both of these terms. So half of 18x's is 9x's, and half of 54, well, I'm just going to do 54 divided by 2 in my calculator, and I get 27. Everything else stayed the same, so I still have x to the 3rd power, or x cubed, plus 9x equals 9x plus 27. All right, from there, I'm trying to get my x's by themselves, so I want them together. There's this 9x on this side, so I'm going to move it to the other side. The opposite of plus 9x is minus 9x, and I have to do it to both sides. All right. On the left side, my 9x's cancel, and on the right side, my 9x's cancel, and so I'm left with x to the 3rd power equals 27. Now x is still not completely by itself. It is being cubed. So to undo that cube, I have to take the cubed root. So that is exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it to both sides. On the left side, my cubed root cancels out my cubed, and I'm just left with x. On the right side, I have to figure out what times itself 3 times is 27, and I'm going to start with 1. So 1 times 1 times 1, that's 1. Move to 2. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Move to 3. 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times another 3, 27. So what cubed is 27? What's the cube root of 27? 3. So the answer here is x equals 3. Okay? The last part of our work today is checking. So we are going to check our work. So I'm going to take my original equation and I'm going to change every single x to what I just got for x. I'm going to change it to a 3. So we now have 3 cubed plus 9 times 3 equals 1/2 times 18 times 3 plus 54. And I want to see, does this balance out? If it does, I know that my answer was right. Okay? First step, I'm going to do 3 cubed. 3 times 3 times 3, I already did that off to the side. It's 27. 9 times 3, this is the next thing I'm going to do. 9 times 3 is also 27. Okay? On the right side, I have to do parentheses first. And within those parentheses, I have more parentheses, so I have multiplication I'm going to do 18 times 3. 18 times 3 in my calculator is 54. And so I have 54 plus 54 within these parentheses. Okay? From there, I'm going to keep solving. My next step is I'm going to actually add these two numbers together, 54 plus 54. And what do I get? 108. Okay, everything else in my equation stayed the same. On the left side, I'm going to add 27 plus 27. And I get 54. Okay? From there, the last thing I have to do is just distribute this 1/2 to 108. 1/2 times 108 is 54. So my equation does balance out. My answer was right. I know that x does equal 3. I checked it off. Okay, make sure you have this worked down, and we're going to move on to some more practice examples, and then you'll get into your own practice with each other. All right, example number 1. Draw a line through my sign, and I'm trying to get all of these x's by themselves. I want it to just say 1x, and I want it to all be together. So the first thing I'm going to do, I see that there's some minus signs here, so I'm going to go through and change all my minus signs to plus negatives. So I have keep, change, opposite. Keep, change this to plus sign, do the opposite of 51. This is a negative 3x, and this is a plus sign. All right, so I've got my minus signs out of the way. Now I'm going to follow my order of operations, which is PEMDAS. I do have some parentheses, but within those parentheses, I can't combine those two things because they're not like terms. So moving on, do I have any exponents? Nope. Do I have any multiplication that I could do? Yes. I have this x being multiplied to whatever's on the inside of those parentheses, x times or plus negative 3. So the first thing I'm going to do x times x. This is the same as saying x squared. Then I'm going to do x times negative 3. This is negative 3x. Everything else in my equation stayed the same. All right, I did my multiplication. Now I have some addition and subtraction to do. I do want to note that I do have an exponent, but I can't solve that exponent because it's just an x being squared, not a number. So I'm going to go ahead and move my numbers around, move my variables around so that they're on the same sides. So I have a negative 3x over here. I want to move it over to the other side with my other 3x. So I'm going to do plus positive 3x. That's the opposite of plus negative 3x. Okay. On the left side, they cancel. On the right side, they cancel. So I am left with x squared plus negative 51 equals 13. My next step is to get my 13 and my 51 together. So the opposite of plus negative 51 is plus positive 51. And I do it to both sides. On the left side, this cancels, and I'm left with x squared equals 13 plus 51 is 64. Now x is still not completely by itself. It's being squared, and so to remove that square, we have to take the square root, and we have to do it to both sides. Over here, the square root cancels the square, and I'm just left with x equals. And on the right side, you should know this by heart, but what number times itself equals 64? 8. 8 times 8 equals 64. So this is our final answer right here. X equals 8. And I'm just going to take a second and check my work. So I'm going to rewrite my equation, my original equation from the top. And wherever there was an x before, I'm going to turn it into an 8. So I had 8 times 8 minus 3 minus 51 equals negative 3 times 8 plus 13, and I want to see, does this balance out? And if it balances out, I was correct. First step is going to be solving this parentheses. 8 take away 3 is 5. And I'm also going to start doing one thing on the right side. I'm going to multiply negative 3 times 8. This is negative 24. Okay. The next thing I want to do on this left side is do 8 times 5. This is 40. And my last step is to do my addition. 40 take away 51. Well, this is going to be negative 11. And on the right side, negative 24 plus 13. This equals negative 11 as well. So it balances out. So my answer was correct. X does equal 8. Okay? Make sure you have this down before we move forward. All right. Example number 2. Draw a line through our sign, and we're trying to get all of our x's together. First thing I see is that I do have no parentheses, so I'm moving straight to exponents. I have one exponent here, but it's x squared, so I cannot actually do any math there. That's as simple as it gets. So now I'm going to move into multiplication and division. I don't see anything being multiplied or divided, so I move into addition and subtraction. I have a lot of signs here. I have addition signs and subtraction signs. I want to turn them all into addition signs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do keep, change to plus, opposite. Okay. All of this stays the same. Keep, and then I want to change this to a plus. That means I do the opposite of what comes next. All right. From there, my next step is to combine some like terms. So over on my left side, I see I have a plus 5x and a plus negative 5x. Those two cancel out. So I'm just left with 67 on that side. So I just have my 67 on this side. Over here I have my x squared plus negative 14. Okay? I want to move this 14 over so that my x is getting isolated. So the opposite of plus negative 14 is plus positive 14. And I do it to both sides. Over here it cancels and I'm just left with x squared. Over here 67 plus 14. I'm going to do it in my calculator just to be sure. 67 plus 14 equals 81. Now x is not completely by itself. It's still being squared, so I have to take the square root. So the square root of x squared, and I have to take the square root of 81. And when I do that, my square root cancels out with my squared. I'm left with x equals, what's the square root of 81? What times what equals 81? Well, you should know this by heart, that it is 9. Okay? Last step is to check my work. So I'm going to take my original equation, turn all of those x's into 9s, and see if it balances out. So I have 9 squared minus 14 equals 5 times 9 plus 67 minus 5 times 9. Okay, and I'm going to solve this to see if it balances out. First thing I want to do is my exponents. 9 squared is the same as 81. On the right side, I'm going to do 5 times 9, which is 45. And I'm going to do my other 5 times 9, which is, again, 45. All right. From there, my next step is to just combine these numbers. On the left side, 81, take away 14. I'm going to do that in my calculator. I get 67. On the right side, I have 45 plus 67 minus 45. We should know that plus 45 and minus 45, those cancel. So all I'm left with on that side is a 67, and 67 does equal 67, so I know my answer, x equals 9, was correct. Please make sure you have all this down before we move forward. All right, last example I'm going to do with you before you move into your own practice. First step, obviously draw a line through my sign, and I'm trying to get x by itself. There's x's spread all around, so I want to move them to one side and then isolate them. Okay? The first thing I want to do is look at my parentheses and see if I can do anything inside of here. Well, I can't do x squared because I don't know what x is, and I can't combine those things. I can't do the subtraction because they're not like terms. Okay? So moving on, I'm going to be looking for multiplication. The only thing that's being multiplied here is this x to everything in the parentheses. So that's what I'm going to do first. X times x squared, this is x to the third power. X times 5 is 5x. And we had a minus sign in the middle, so we're going to keep that minus sign. Everything else stays the same. Okay? From there, I want to start moving my x's over to the same side together. So this x is the only one that's over here. So I'm going to move it to the other side. So the opposite of plus x is minus x. So I'm going to minus x from both sides. Or subtract x from both sides. Over here it cancels and I'm just left with 216. On this side, I have x cubed minus 5x plus 6x minus one more x, that green x that I added in. Okay, now on the right side I have all my x's together, so I'm going to start combining the terms. The first thing I want to do before I can combine is change my minus signs to plus signs. So I do keep, change, opposite, keep, change, opposite. All right, from there I can combine my negative 5x's with my other negative x. So I have negative 5x's plus negative 1x. There's negative 6x's. And I keep everything else the same. Okay, from there I'm going to combine my negative 6x's with my positive 6x's, and they just cancel out. They'll literally get rid of each other. So I'm left with the problem 216 equals x cubed. To get that x completely by itself, I have to take the cubed root. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So I'm finding the cubed root of 216. And that's going to tell me what my answer is because x is isolated. So what times what times what equals 216? Well, I'm going to start with, let's see, 5. 5 times 5 times 5. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. Times another 25 is 125. Okay, now let's try 6. 6 times 6 times 6. Well, 6 times 6 is 36. And 36 times another 6 is 216. So my answer is that the cubed root of 216 is 6. Okay? Last thing I want to do before I move on is check my answer. So I'm going to be plugging my answer in to my original equation to see if it balances out. So wherever there's an x, I'm changing to a 6. This becomes 216 plus 6 equals 6, parentheses 6 squared, minus 5 plus 6 times 6. Right? I want to do my parentheses first, but within those parentheses, there's an exponent, so I have to solve 6 squared first. So this becomes 36 minus 5. Everything else stayed the same. Okay. The next step I have here is solving this parentheses. 36 take away 5. This is 31. So I have 6 times 31 plus 6 times 6. And I keep everything the same on my left side. The next thing I want to do is this multiplication over here. I'm going to do both of them. 6 times 31. Do it in my calculator. I get 186. And 6 times 6 is 36. All right, from there I have one step left, and that is to add everything up on both sides. On the right side, 216 plus 6 is 222. On the right side, 186 plus 36 is 222. My answer was correct. X does equal 6 because it balances out my equation when I solve it. All right, here's your first exercise that you're going to try on your own. Please solve using the order of operations. And in about 1 minute, we're going to check this together. Okay? Take your time, show your work, and do your best. All right, the first thing I did here was I distributed this x to both things within the parentheses. X times x is x squared. Keep my minus sign. X times 1 is 1x. Next thing I want to do is change all of my minus signs to plus signs. Okay, from there I want to get my x's together. There's a plus negative x over here. I want to move it to the other side, so I'm going to do the opposite of plus negative 1x, and it's plus positive 1x. They cancel. I'm left with x squared equals, they cancel, 121. To get x completely by itself, I take the square root, and I have to do to both sides. When I do that, I get x by itself, and the square root of 121 is 11. We can check our work by plugging it into our original equation up top and seeing if we change 11, or x to 11, will our equation balance out. So we have 11 times 11 minus 1 equals 121 minus 11. So 11 minus 1 is 10. 11 times 10 is 110, and 121 minus 11 is 110, so it balances out. So please make sure you have all of this down before we move forward. Hopefully you were able to get this right, and if not, hopefully you were able to find your mistake so that you don't make it again. Okay, moving on. All right, so this one we have to create our equation together. So it says a square has a side length of 3x inches. Now if this is a square, then all sides are 3x inches, right? And the area is 324 inches. That means that this times this, or 3x squared, equals 324. So I have 3x squared equals 324. So this is my equation, okay? So the first thing I want to do is, I'm just going to help you out a little bit with this one because it's a little bit different than everything we've done before. So we want to distribute this squared to both these. So 3 squared is 9. X squared is just x squared. So from there, I want you to try to solve this, get x by itself, and see what you can come up with. And we'll go over it very soon, okay? All right, my first step here was to get this 9 away from my x. So the opposite of times 9 is divided by 9. And I do it to both sides. So on this side, I'm left with x squared equals 324 divided by 9. If I do it in my calculator, I get 36. From there, I need to take the square root of both sides so that I can get rid of that squared, that exponent of 2. I'm left with x equals, what's the square root of 36? 6. And that's my answer. I can check my work by plugging it in and seeing if it balances out. So in my original equation, I had 3x squared. Now I know that the x is a 6, so this becomes 3 times 6 squared. 3 times 6 is 18, so I'm going to be doing 18 squared. 18 squared is the same as saying 18 times 18, which is 324. So these balance out. My answer was correct, and we're going to go ahead and move on. Please make sure you have this work down. All right, last exercise here. Please draw a line through your sign. Isolate your variable, get all your x's together, and then, just make sure it's by itself. You can check your work when you're done, and we will go over this in a couple of minutes together. All right, the first thing I did was I looked at my parentheses and I saw I can't combine anything within them. But both of these sets are being multiplied, so I can distribute. So on this side, x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Everything stays the same. On this side, 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 19.5, I'll do that in my calculator. 19.5 times 4, that is 78. Okay? From there, I want to try to move my x's together. And I have this 4x on the left side. I want to move it, or the right side, I want to move it over to the left side. So the opposite of plus 4x is minus 4x. So I'm going to take away 4x's from both sides. You'll see that it actually cancels on both sides. On the left side, I'm left with x squared minus 3. On the right side, I have 78. I want to move that 3 away from my x squared. The opposite of minus 3 is plus 3. I do it to both sides, and I'm left with x squared equals 78 plus 3 is 81. My last step here is to get x completely by itself, so I'm going to take the square root from both sides. Over here, this cancels, and I'm left with x equals, what's the square root of 81? You should know that that is 9. We can check our work by plugging 9 back into this. So 9 times 9 plus 4 minus 3 equals 4 times 9 plus 19.5. First thing we're going to do is our parentheses, so 9 plus 4 is 13. Everything else stayed the same over here. And 9 plus 19.5 is 28.5. Next up is to do our multiplication. So 9 times 13, this is 117. Over here, 4 times 28.5, this is 114. Last step is to do 117 minus 3, which is 114. And yes, it balances out my equation. My solution was correct. Okay, check it. Make sure you're identifying any mistakes you're making. Ask me questions if you have questions, and we're going to move on. All right, here's our lesson closure today. Equations that contain variables that are squared or cubed can be solved using properties of equality, just like we've always known. So the only extra learning we were doing today, and actually it's just like extra practice, is applying our knowledge of squares, cubes, square roots, and cube roots to solve for x. All right? If you don't feel confident and ready for the exit ticket, don't move forward. Go back and rewatch these examples and exercises until you do, okay? We're going to go over the exit ticket right now. All right, your exit ticket is just like the work we did today in class. All you're going to be doing is finding what x equals. I also want you to verify that your solution is correct, so that means check your work, okay? Get x by itself using properties of equality, and use your knowledge of exponents and radicals to help you get there. When you're done, please complete the lesson reflection in Google Classroom, and make sure your Moby Max minutes are done for this week, because today is Friday. All right, good luck.